as I say, there's no way of knowing when he jumped. After the door come open, he may have stood there 15 minutes waiting for the proper spot to come up that he could have had marked in advance, but summation.
November 24th, 1971. In Portland, Oregon, 36 passengers and 6 crewmates were boarded on Flight 305 at the Portland International Airport, which intended to fly to Seattle, Washington. It was a normal day for most of those on the plane, but for a select few, it quickly became anything but normal. Among the passengers on the plane was a man that went only by Dan Cooper on his plane ticket. He appeared to be in his 40s by eyewitnesses and wore a black suit, tie, white shirt, and also wore sunglasses. Shortly after takeoff, he hands a note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. The note read, "Miss, I have a bomb here, and I would like you to sit by me." She was stunned by the note, but reluctantly gave in to his request and sat by him. Cooper then opened his briefcase, which seemed to contain sticks of dynamite that were wired together with a battery. He then closes the case and begins listing his demands to Florence. She then writes everything that he demanded and gives it to the cockpit. In total, he demanded 4 parachutes and $200,000 in cash. That amount of money would be worth around $1.5 million in today's standards. He also wanted the plane to refuel in Seattle as soon as they landed. If they refused, he would detonate his bomb. Florence was then instructed to remain in the cockpit, and flight attendant Tina Mucklow went in her stead to sit next to Cooper. She used a phone in the back of the cabin to talk to the flight crew and act as an intermediary between them and the hijacker. During the flight to Seattle, Cooper additionally wanted Mucklow to remain with him at all times, and that he would let the passengers go once he gets what he wants. Upon reaching Seattle, the plane flew around in a pattern for an hour and a half while the authorities worked to get the ransom money and parachutes. During this time, the passengers were completely unaware of the situation, and were told by the crew that their arrival would be delayed due to mechanical difficulties. We learned through Mucklow that Cooper throughout this sort of dilemma did not seem nervous. In fact, he was said to have been nice and not at all cruel to anyone. She asked him why he chose to hijack their airline, which he then laughed and said, "It's not because I have a grudge against your airlines, it's just because I have a grudge." Eventually, the authorities had all the ransom money and parachutes, and the plane was able to land. Upon being given them ransom by Mucklow, he then let the passengers leave, who were still unaware of what just happened. After consulting with the cockpit crew, they decided with Cooper that they would refuel once again at Reno, Nevada before heading towards Mexico City, Cooper's desired destination. As the plane took off towards Reno, Cooper instructed the crew to fly at low altitudes and to have the rear exit door open with the staircase extended. The crew tried to reason with him about the dangers of doing this, but Cooper was not taking no for an answer. He then agreed to lower the stairs himself and for Mucklow to return to the cockpit and not return. The last thing Mucklow saw of Cooper before closing the curtain partition was a hijacker standing in the aisle with a bag of money. A few minutes go by and the warning lights flash in the cockpit, indicating that the staircase was deployed. The pilot intercomed to ask if he needed help, with Cooper's response being simply, "No," which was then the last message the crew heard from him. The rest of the trip there was silent as the crew's ears popped from the release of air pressure from the cabin. And after finally landing at Reno, the police arrived at the airport and the captain checked the cabin for the bomb or for Cooper. Both were gone, leaving them to assume that Dan and the money jumped out of the plane during the flight. The investigation following the hijacking became an ordeal that would last for decades. Not much evidence was left behind from Cooper, aside from his tie and 2 of the parachutes he requested. Many things were revealed throughout the years, but nothing that could pinpoint where Dan Cooper went. Many believe that he didn't survive his fall, and many others believe that he did. The FBI processed thousands of potential suspects, but none of them would stick. It would seem that whoever did it was able to disappear like smoke. The case would continue on all the way up until July of 2016, when the FBI officially suspended the case. The mystery of this event is still talked about today. Who was Dan Cooper? What were his motives? Did he survive his fall? All of these questions and more are still left unanswered. But one thing is for certain. Human beings will forever be the most interesting creatures on Earth. We are capable of so many things, and we use our time and talents for reasons that not everyone will understand. Maybe in the end, some mysteries are better left unsolved.